Long before the history of North America was written down, long before European explorers reached the shores of the Western Hemisphere, Native American groups traveled across the continent following herds of migrating animals. Over the centuries, these people adapted to their surroundings and developed different cultures and lifestyles. They hunted game in the forest or on the prairie and learned to use the natural resources of the land. Their history and traditions were handed down through storytellers, and they communicated with other tribes through sign language. They had no written language, only pictographs sketched on stone, wood, or animal hides. Somewhere around 2,500 to 2,000 years ago, a new weapon, the bow and arrow, was introduced to replace the spear and atlatl. Over the next 500 years, the use of the bow and arrow spread from tribe to tribe. This weapon was more accurate than a spear and could hit a target at a greater distance. Also, around the year 1 AD, some tribes began to plant crops for food instead of simply gathering wild plants. This made it possible for the groups to settle in one place in permanent villages. Another advancement was the development of pottery. Pots and bowls made from clay and heated over hot coals to make them durable. These three developments, the bow and arrow, the planting of crops, and the making of pottery, mark the time period called Neo-American. All of the tribes native to Texas developed one or more of these three inventions or skills. The Neo-American tribes of Texas can be divided into two main categories. Farming tribes who lived in permanent villages and raised crops as a main food source, and hunter-gatherer tribes who moved about in search of plants and animal herds. The Caddo Confederacies of East Texas were the most advanced cultures of Native Americans in Texas. They lived in the piney woods region of East Texas, where the forest provided game animals, rich soil, and plentiful rainfall. The Caddo lived in sturdy beehive-shaped houses made of long poles, grass, and mud. The houses could be quite large and provide a home for more than one family. Long, thin poles were set in the ground in a large circle and pulled together at the top to form a cone shape. Then other long willow poles were woven through to make a ladder or basket weave design. Next, long grass was cut and tied to the horizontal poles. One row of grass lapped over the next to make a cover that would allow water to run off and not leak through. Mud could be coated over the grass to make the houses warm in the winter, and rows of grass could be removed in the summer to allow breezes to flow through the house and cool it. The houses were built to last a long time, and the grass could be replaced when it became worn. Sleeping platforms were built along the walls, and there was a fire pit in the center. A smoke hole in the top of the roof allowed the smoke to be drawn out just as a chimney on a fireplace today draws the smoke up the flue. A Caddo village was a collection of these houses around a central area, usually dominated by large grass-covered mounds. These mounds, or earthen pyramids, were built by the tribe one basket full of dirt at a time, sometimes to heights of 20 or 30 feet. It would require the work of all the villagers for many days. Remains of similar mounds are found across a wide section of the southeastern United States, at sites like Poverty Point in Louisiana and Cahokia in southern Illinois. And in Texas, these mounds can be seen at Caddo Mound State Park near Nacogdoches in East Texas. Often, these mounds were burial chambers for important leaders. Some were merely platforms for important buildings occupied by government councils or religious centers. Today, these mounds tell us much about Caddo society, that these people were part of a highly organized culture that could plan and engineer the building of such structures. Caddo had a strong government system called a confederacy. Each group or tribe had its own chiefs and priests who directed village life. But in times of need, such as food shortage or attack by an enemy, the tribes could call on neighboring villages in their confederacy for help. A council made up of the leaders of the different tribes and confederacies met to make decisions about tribal safety or trade. Atop the mounds and temples built for the priest, a fire was always kept burning. People of the tribe were required to bring extra food to be stored in this central place to protect against years when crops might fail. Caddo men tended the crops along with the women. They planted corn, beans, and squash, and rotated the crops from field to field from year to year. This kept the soil rich and productive. Because food was plentiful, not everyone in the tribe was required to farm. Some fished using a trot line. This was a long line with smaller lines extended from it. Each short line held a fish hook, and each hook could be baited and dropped into the stream. In this way, several fish could be caught at once, and the line could be in the water at all times. Some men hunted game in the forest: deer, rabbit, bear, and many other animals. There is evidence also that the Caddo traveled west to the Great Plains to hunt buffalo and to trade with the Plains tribes. Their tools and weapons were made of flint or stone, and they used the wood of the bodark tree to make bows for hunting. Other tribe members made pottery or wove baskets. In the burial mounds that have been uncovered, examples of pottery work have been found. These figures and ceremonial pipe pieces have been unearthed. They show the artistic skills of Caddo craftsmen. Artists decorated the clay pots in different ways, sometimes with paints made from clay, charcoal, and berry juice, sometimes by etching the wet clay with a stick or even a fingernail. Baskets were woven from long grass and used for storing food or carrying goods, or moving dirt to build the mounds. The Caddo people tattooed their bodies by pricking the skin with a sharp tool and rubbing clay or charcoal into the scratch. Both men and women decorated their body in this way. They wore skirts or loincloths made from tanned animal skins, and shirts or shawls and leggings for protection in the winter. Until the coming of Spanish explorers, the Caddo nations controlled the eastern woodlands with the strongest and most advanced culture in Texas. The Wichita tribe lived to the west of the Caddo, along the Red River and south to the Brazos River. The Tawakoni and the Waco were part of the Wichita, and we see these names today for lakes and cities of Texas. The Wichita lived in houses much like the Caddo in permanent villages. And like the Caddo, there was a religious ceremony involved in their building. 4 posts were set in 4 cardinal directions, and a small doorway on the south side was provided for the spirits to pass through. This spirit door provides fresh air to enter the house during the winter months, when the larger doorways would be covered.
And we've had a tornado come across this hill, blew out the windows in the modern building, but these houses were left untouched. It's the design of the house. If it had square sides and flat walls, it would have been too wind resistant. Better to have it rounded, the winds just kind of blow around it. And the way it breathes, when the air pressure goes up in tornado season, you don't have to worry about the walls blowing out or your windows breaking like we do in our houses now. It's a really good house for Tornado Alley.
The floor of this Wichita house was made from a mixture of ash and clay. The result is a natural tile that can be swept.
We've got a lot of flash flooding here, and that was a problem for them, like it is for us now, but they dug moats. They were smarter than us. They dig moats around their house and went around the whole village, because there was a fence, like a fort, and then a moat, and that had a runoff away from the village. These little ridges, these are water stops. When it rains, a little bit of water is going to build up by the doorway, but this will keep it from coming into the house.
The Wichita also planted crops of corn, beans, and squash, and had plum orchards near the villages. Their farm tools were pointed sticks and blades made from buffalo bones. The rich, sandy soil along the Red River was easily cultivated. Another common food of the Wichita was pumpkin. The meaty shell of the pumpkin would be cut in a long, thin spiral and hung to dry in the sun. Later, the ropes of pumpkin would be woven into baskets for storing food. When the food was all gone, the baskets could be soaked in water and eaten.
Of course, what they couldn't make with pumpkin, they made everything out of pumpkin. Pumpkin soup, pumpkin breads, baskets, they could make mats out of it, everything.
The Wichita lived along two of the largest rivers in Texas, the Red and the Brazos. But they did not eat fish, even though multitudes could have been taken from these rivers. The tribe had moved south from present-day Kansas to settle along the Red River. The land is at the edge of the Great Plains, and because of this, the Wichita had two lifestyles, one as a farming tribe and another as hunters of the plains. Each year, families would leave their permanent villages and travel out to the plains to hunt buffalo. They would live in buffalo hide teepees, and the entire tribe would kill game and prepare the meat. Strips of buffalo meat would be jerked or cut and dried in the sun to make jerky. Also, the dried meat could be pounded into a powder, then mixed with animal fat and berries to make pemmican. The jerky and pemmican could be stored for eating when the Wichita returned to their permanent homes. Families were very important to the Wichita. Daughters learned cooking and sewing skills from their mothers. Sons learned hunting skills from their fathers. They also learned how to make arrow points and bows. Grandparents were important because they passed down the history and heritage of the tribe in stories they told. Like most Native American tribes, the Wichita carried their infants on cradle boards, and mothers kept them close as they worked. Cradles that carried healthy babies who grew up strong were highly prized and handed down from generation to generation.
All different tribes have cradle boards. There's just different styles. The ones that are fully beaded with all the white buckskin and fringe come from the Plains tribes. This is Wichita style. It's made out of willow sticks. All different styles, but it was handy for the women because they could have the baby on their back and still have both hands free to work in the fields.
The feathered corn cob hanging from the ceiling is a toy to entertain the baby. The Wichita had several leaders, each with an equal voice. A council of these leaders would meet and discuss important decisions for the tribe. Like the Caddo, the Wichita dressed in loincloth and skirts of animal skin. They wore long shirts and leggings and moccasins for protection and warmth. They also tattooed their bodies. Wichita women tattooed a dark line around their mouth with 4 short lines drawn down their chin. A line of triangles ran from ear to ear along their jawline, and another line was tattooed down their nose. Wichita men were also known for tattooing their faces heavily with a dark line at the corner of each eye and across their eyelids. Because of these customs, other tribes called the Wichita the raccoon-eyed people. The Wichita tribe lived the life of both permanent farming culture and the life of hunters on the high plains.